1971, Nixon took us off the gold standard, and we went from an equity-based system to a debt-based monetary system. And what that means is that money is created through debt issuance. So when I grew up, my parents were like, what do you think? I got a money tree in the backyard? Yeah, we do. We all have a money tree in the backyard. We can go down to the local bank and I can get $1 million right now. I can get a boring business from Cody Sanchez that's trading 3 times value. I can buy $1 million business with $300,000 of free cash flow. I get a loan for that. I have $150,000 of debt service, and I have $150,000 free just coming to me just because I went to the money tree at the bank. So he is saying don't use debt, but the way we build wealth is by money's created through using debt. And so you hear like Donald Trump, he was known as the king of debt, right? He became a billionaire. Robert Kiyosaki, he's a billionaire, used debt to get there. So Robert Kiyosaki says that Dave Ramsey is right for the majority of people because the majority of people have never built up the skill set to use it. Now, leverage and debt is similar to fire, I say. Fire can heat my home or it could burn my house down. Kids should not play with fire. You have little kids. You don't want them playing with fires down in your trees because they could start a fire. But hopefully you get old enough and you learn how to use fire responsibly. But the problem is most adults have never learned how to use debt responsibly. And so I would say rather than telling people, stay away from wealth creation, stay away from debt, I would maybe teach people how to use debt responsibly because that's the way to achieve wealth really fast. So that'd be probably one thing that I would change. Again, it reminding people that it is dangerous and you do have to be careful, but there is a right way to wield that sword that could achieve massive results.
It's almost like the mindset he gives is the same one where you go to a doctor that's maybe smoking a cigarette with a belly and he's like, just take this pill and you'll be okay. It's like this reactive approach where the physician or the financial advisor doesn't trust the person to be sovereign, doesn't trust the person to grow the skill set. It's actually quite disempowering. So it's like a Band-Aid that you put on. But that's what I feel like Ramsey's doing. And I interviewed John Deloney, and he was talking about like, oh, we need to save more and sell our cars. And I just cut him off. I'm like, I do not want to have people get in this mindset of like, save money and earn more. Although there's truth to that, there is this leverage that you talk about that's so fascinating. And it is actually going into smart debt. Like using money to make more money because still money doesn't do anything, right? People that have like huge amounts of liquid in the bank, like they are missing out on something really big here. How do we even begin that process? Let's say that somebody just has 10 or 20 grand in the bank, right? Not a lot of money, but enough to start leveraging it, yes? Would they go to cryptocurrency first? Would they diversify in something else? Like what's the real intelligence there to start?
I would say the first thing is making sure you're making enough money. And so I would invest most of my money there in the beginning. So do I need to take more classes on acquiring more skills, whether that be copywriting or Facebook advertising or video editing or whatever? And can I grow my wealth creation first, right? Because nobody invested their way to wealth. Warren Buffett, he's known as the best investor in the world, but really he started a business and he still goes to work every day at a company called Berkshire Hathaway. Ray Dalio, famous investor, built a business called Bridgewater Capital. It was a business. And so we have to create the wealth first. We can't invest our way there. So I would say, number one, if you only have 10 grand, I would probably try to figure out how you can make more money with that. Now, once I have my wealth creation going, I have some sort of, now I have enough money to work with, then we can start investing. How do we do that? I think a very simple way would be, real estate is where most people make their money because it's elementary level education. You could buy a rental property, you put the $10,000 down on a $100,000 house. It makes you $200 a month. You put the $200 a month in the bank account. In 4 years, you have enough to buy a second house. Now that goes in the bank. In 2 years, you have enough to buy another one. Now 1 year, you have enough to buy another one. Now 6 months, you have enough to buy another one. And in 7 or 8 years, you got like 6 or 7 houses. You probably don't have to work again. That's very simple. There's faster ways to achieve that. So then, for example, I talk about like in the Bitcoin space, people say, well, what's better, Bitcoin or real estate? I'm a big Bitcoin guy. We can talk about Bitcoin. But Bitcoin or real estate, which one's better? Well, better for what? So I think that's the wrong question to be asking. The better question would be, how do I use multiple assets in the proper sequence to end up with more with both? So real estate is actually a pretty bad investment in my opinion. Well, factually it is, unless you use debt. If you pay cash for real estate, it's not that good. Like Bitcoin's going up on average, it's up 142% in 12 months, it's up 250% in 24 months. Real estate's going up by about 8%. So 150% sounds better than 8%, right? But real estate, you use debt. So I can put 10% down and leverage that asset. So I can leverage a $100,000 asset with $10,000. So number one, I get the leverage. So now if I bought a property For 100,000, I put 10,000 down. In 3 years, that property is worth 130,000, 140,000. It's up 30% on the 100,000, but it's up multiple times on the 10,000 I put down.
But what about the interest rate and the home fees? Like I spent like multiple hundred thousands here just getting it to a place where it could be comfortable.
Yeah.
How do you take that into effect? Because like you said, real estate is a great elementary step, but it also has some opportunity costs that maybe people don't plan for. You're experiencing that with Mexico.
Yeah, for sure.
So how do you factor that into
my place here as well?
Yeah, how do you factor that in?
Well, that's what we call a value add. And so that's taking it to the next level. So now we're talking about adding more skills. So then if I was going to buy that proverbial house for 100,000 that hopefully makes me $200 a month, maybe I'm making a 10% cash on cash return. I'd like to make a 20% cash on cash return. So how could I get that from a 10% to a 20%? Well, maybe I could add a garage. Maybe I could remodel it. Maybe, right? And then I could increase the rent. So I put 20,000 down to add a carport, but I'm able to increase my rents by $300 a month. Right. So now we're talking about value adding. And so back to your example here at your house, is this house worth more now that you've done the work than it was before?
Yeah.
Of course, right?
Drastically.
Exactly, right? So the goal, no different than what Cody does with buying boring businesses, buy a boring business and then update the marketing and put technology in, and you've increased the value of the business. So that's just a core basic principle. And so back to the real estate, I mean, my house in Mexico, I bought a piece of dirt.
On the beach.
It's
a good piece of dirt.
And now we're value adding. We're adding value by putting a structure there.
Yeah.
And it will probably be worth, I'm guessing it's worth 2 to 2.5 times more than it will cost me to build it. Right. So, because I've added that value. Right. So that's how I kind of think about it. So you could start obviously in the beginning by buying places that don't need that extra money. Your returns are going to be lower. If what I say is like passive income or income is sort of like it's a scale, right? So the least amount of work is my least return. I can buy a U.S. Treasury and make 5%. I have to do hardly nothing, right? I could add passive income in my business and make 50%, but I have to work a lot more for it. So real estate fits on that scale. I could buy a piece of real estate that's done, ready to go. My cash on cash return will be very low. If I'm willing to put more value, more work into that, then I can increase that return. So
and
that's
stress
what I think
with the
about
contractors and maybe
yeah,
do some
you
stuff
have to do
yourself.
work, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I told my people at the Ranch Experience this weekend, I said, look, first of all, what is it that you want? Number 2, you can have anything that you want. Anything in the world. It's all on the other side of work.
It's the work part, I think, that maybe people don't feel they can do it or they don't know how to do it. It's like, well, then just learn, right? Just like everyone else did. It's like the first time you went on the radio, was it super comfortable? Did you feel like you were the best day 1 versus year 3?
Yeah, certainly not.
Okay,
Certainly not.
so it's like the first time we do anything, there's always a crunchy learning curve.
Yeah.
And I think that learning curve applies massively to Bitcoin. Look at the fear mongering that's going on with Bitcoin. If you like that clip, click the one that's on the screen now, and I promise you'll enjoy it just the same, if not more.